Yeah, you're right.
Chilling, man.
Yeah,
Chilling
good,
out.
good. Well, like it seems like you're having a lot of fun being at home with all the stories you've been sharing. That shit's funny, man.
Yeah, it gives me something to do, right?
Yeah, I know. It's a difficult time, and well, first of all, I apologize for, not picking up on the time difference. I had no idea. I was like, what? I thought you said 11, and then you're like, it's 11.
To be fair, I probably should have known that we were gonna have the hour difference thing.
Uh-huh.
It happened yesterday or the day before, but I was fully
Yeah.
unaware. I found out when you found out, so it's all good.
All right, cheers. Yeah, that always happens. I mean, because I think it only happens like twice a year, so and we don't actually keep track of when exactly it happens. And then most of the time when we find out it happens, it's like when it happens, that's when we know. So,
Same,
but
same.
yeah, apologies for that. So how are you coping with, staying at home? I mean, you must be itching to go out there to perform. I mean, you guys just finished your tour, but then you guys must be itching to like actually to do some stuff now, right?
Right. So outside of all the negative stuff with people's health and businesses struggling and shit like that, for me personally, it's actually been pretty good.
Oh,
I've been at home. I've been writing. I've been working a lot.
mhm.
I've been knuckling down. Don't think I've ever written so much music in a short space of time.
Oh, wow.
Um, so I'm kind of swimming in riffs right now. It's pretty sweet. But
Oh, wow, that's
yeah, I'm aware
nice.
that it's not, a lot of people can't work and stuff.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's not all sick for everyone. But for me, it hasn't affected me too bad. The main negative thing is that, I mean, apart from not being able to see like my friends and family or whatever,
Mhm.
um, a Monuments tour has been postponed. We were supposed to hit the States with Sky Harbor in a couple of weeks. That's
Oh,
not.
shit.
But I really think it's a bit of a blessing in disguise because we that's 5 weeks that we won't be writing music for.
Mhm.
We just got Andy in. We just have a new singer,
Mhm.
and I think the most important thing for this band to do right now is write an album.
Mm.
So what with us both, me and Brown being at home, Mike's at home, we're all just getting the riffs happening.
Mhm.
Which means when we do finally hit the States, there's more of a chance of us playing new material and we'll be closer to having a new album out, which is the main thing for us to do. Because otherwise, we'd go on that tour, then we get back, then we'd start writing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We could potentially have half of this thing done by the time we hit the stage next time. So,
Yeah,
which
that's
that would
true.
be
Yeah, that's true. I think this is kind of like the perfect opportunity for people to actually get things done. Actually, because obviously, like you said, the typical routine is like to go on tour, and then after that you come back, rest for a bit, and then writing process starts again. Or either that, or you start writing on the road. But then now you're actually forced to sit at home. You can't go out, and like the only thing you can do is literally just write and write and write.
it's pretty sweet. The zero distractions. That it's allowing me to just catch up with all the shit in my emails, all the shit in my to-do list that I managed to always find an excuse to not get done. I'm just smashing through it, and it's pretty cool. Especially with writing music, like I've been talking about
Hmm.
releasing solo material for like a long time now, and
Hmm.
it seems to be happening. So I don't want to jinx anything. I'm not going to say anything about what's coming out and when because there's one thing I've learned. It's just shut up until it's really real. Uh,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
right now things are looking really good.
Oh, that's good. I'm happy to hear that, and like I'm excited to see what you guys come up with, or you personally come up with. And yeah, like I mean, at least we know something's coming. We just don't know when it's coming.
Right. I mean,
Yeah,
even if we had an album right now, we can't go to a studio. So like
yeah.
it's all a bit it's all a bit up in the air, but at least having the material there would be good so that, when things open back up, we could just get right into it. Would be ideal.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I think this gives you like the opportunity to like not rush through writing. I mean, it's not every day when, especially for a band like Monuments, you guys tour a lot. So you guys are constantly under pressure in a sense that you have to work within this 3 week period that you're not on tour. And then after that, you head out again, and then you come back, you've got a couple of weeks, and then you have to cramp all your ideas, within those few weeks. And this is the perfect and unprecedented opportunity for you guys to really write and write and write without knowing how much time, which is rare. It doesn't happen. It hasn't happened before, I mean, unless you guys choose not to go on tour.
Yeah, I mean, we've done that before. Even if we toured for the rest of the year, we would reach a point where it's like we really need to knuckle down and get the new album out, because with Animus, with the single with Andy, it was lucky that we had that left over from Phronesis. It was a Phronesis tune, but no vocals written for it, so that worked out pretty nicely. But yeah, currently we don't have, we only have the demos and stuff that we have, so we need to get on with it.
All right, good.
And I'm excited as well. We have Mike back. That's a huge thing. A new vocals. That's a huge thing. So it's gonna be. It's a pretty exciting time.
Well, looking forward to see what you guys have cooked up. So it'll only be a matter of time before you guys release it. So, yeah, looking forward to that. So yeah, first of all, I mean, really thank you for taking the time out to do this with me. I'm sure, I really appreciate it, and I'm sure your fans would appreciate it as well, because it's not every day where you get up close and personal with Olly. I mean, apart from looking at your stories every day, yeah, it's not every day that you get to hear Olly talk, because obviously before this talk, I kind of told you it was a bit challenging to come up with the questions in your case, because I couldn't think of any fucking questions that you haven't answered before, right. Because I was checking out what you've done in the past, your lessons, your recent one with JTC, and it's like, oh, this guy answered literally everything already. I mean, because obviously you're well known for your technical playing. So then often we hear something.
Some go downstairs. It's all good.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, obviously, because you get a lot of questions about composition and about your technique. And then obviously, you mentioned with JTC that your strength isn't with gear itself, like types of wood, types of what. So then that kind of eliminates a whole spectrum of questions that one would typically be able to ask.
Good. I'm glad that was a good idea.
Yeah,
I'm glad that came up.
Yeah, because
it's not. Just to clarify, it's not that I don't know anything at all. I know a little bit. Obviously, you can't be in a touring band for 10 years and be around people and see, and not know a single thing. The other thing is just like in our scene, in this kind of techie, modern, proggy metal, genty thing, whatever you want to call it. For a lot of people, it's kind of the chatting about gear is fun, like nerding out about gear, chatting about it for sport, comparing collections and stuff like that is fun. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the time people come to me with this energy, like I'm going to enjoy it, but I actually just find it really boring and not, yeah. So if I was more articulate about it, maybe I could have got that across, but I fully get it. But it's just like, I'm way more about the result in most aspects of music. So I'm way more about the song as that's the result. I don't enjoy like writing as much as I enjoy the finished product, and I don't enjoy the just chatting about the little bit. That's to me that's the boring stuff. That's like the necessary evil. I don't find that bit so exciting. Mm-hmm. But I do like a sick tone. I do like it when everything matches up. I do like it when this boost pedal in front of this guitar, in front of this amp or whatever, when this combination is magic thing. I do all of that myself. I do have my own quest for tone or whatever. Mm-hmm. I just don't like, part of my brain just doesn't get why that's fun to chat about with other people. But anyway, so I feel like you're not about to ask me about that stuff. So that's sweet, because that's like a go-to question for most people.
Yeah, I think if I hadn't if not for your suggestion to just check out your chat with JTC first, that would you probably would have saw a question or two coming your way. But it was because of that you made it clear that it's not your topic of preference. So there I was like, okay, there's no way I'm gonna ask. And then I was like, fuck, what else do I have? And then after that, I mean, I was listening to your stuff, and then obviously watched more videos, and then ideas just came up, and then thankfully, I still managed to come up with a few questions which I think I may be wrong, but I think were not really asked in detail, or you've never really gotten the opportunity to kind of elaborate more in detail.
Cool.
So yeah, that wasn't an easy task, especially I only had a few days to prep, and obviously thank you for being here. So let's hop on to the questions, shall we?
Yeah, boy.
So all right, good. All right. So you've been with Monuments for about 9 years now. So how did it feel like 9 years ago, and how does it feel now? Because 9 years is a long time, and obviously there's always that hype with a new band, and it's all excited, but then often you find that heat just cools down really quickly, or if not, just how did it feel back then, and then how does it feel right now?
It's just it was extremely exciting. I mean, when I first joined, I think I was 19. Mm-hmm. I'm 29 now. So I was extremely excited and nervous and just fully clueless. I mean, more so than I am now. I still consider myself someone who has no idea what they're doing. But there's more, there's just so much life experience that isn't there when you're a teenager. And so many people I hadn't met yet, so many examples of, different shit that's out there in the world, so many places I hadn't been. So it was pretty intense, even though the band weren't that, they weren't that big. There was buzz there, and I loved the band before they had only put out a couple of tunes, of which I heard too, and I fully loved them, was really excited. But it was pretty intense, and I was still doing a lot of development in my own playing as well. So everything was coming up. I was growing up. I was meeting these new people. I was getting to play live for the first time, kind of properly, and sucking at it as well, which was cool. And so yeah, it was fully, now there's a situation as well where the first tour I was filling in. So I didn't know if I was going to be in the band or not. Obviously in my brain, that was the optimum kind of outcome, but I hadn't predicted that. I hadn't assumed that was going to happen. So it was just, there was a lot. I was just kind of enjoying it for what it was as well. And then I've kind of ridden. It was only till a couple of years ago when the responsibility stuff kind of comes into play, which makes it a bit more like work, right? Because if you're not getting paid, like on that first tour, we were getting paid fuck all. And, it was kind of, rough. We're in a little van. I mean, how touring works. You don't just start in an airplane. But that kind of made it more, it was more just a bit of fun. Whereas now it's okay, we actually have profiles, and we're actually kind of I don't want to say role models, but, people are kind of looking. And, I have my own kind of brand thing that I'm trying to make happen outside of being in Monuments. The same way Browne is Browne from Monuments, but he's also John Browne from YouTube or whatever. Same with Mike, same with Andy and YouTube, whatever. So with just as you grow older and you're, that's a sweet email. Just as you, I hope it is. The same way that as you grow older, it's not all fun and games anymore. There's responsibilities now. There are things you have to juggle all this shit. It's just a bit more like that, but it's not that it's not fun. It's still the most exciting thing in my life, and I'm still really, really grateful and excited about the things that I get to experience every year around the globe. It's just
Oh,
less. I'm just less of an idiot teenager now. That's basically the difference.
well, 10 years is a long time, so um, I'm sure. I mean, if you haven't grown in that time, then I think it would have been you might not be in the band if you haven't grown in this 10 years.
For sure. I mean,
Yeah.
just it's just the sheer amount of people that you meet, bands you tour with. If you go on tour with a band, you're with them for like a minimum of 20 days. You're going to get to know these people. They have different musical outlooks. They're different. They have different upbringings. They have different. Everyone's just different in general, and there's just so much to take in. And then that's happening whilst that relationship is kind of growing or whatever, or not in some cases. But whilst that system's happening, you're also in a different country every day or a different state every day.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just so much like fresh information, and there's a lot. I usually come off tour pretty inspired. It's a lot. Yeah, I would. There's no way I would be if I wasn't doing the music thing and I wasn't touring and I wasn't meeting all these people and seeing so many different examples of different musical process and all this shit. Process. I still don't know what that is. I wouldn't be. Yeah, I wouldn't be anything like I am now.
Well, it's good. Like I think it's hard. We'll never know what sort of situations we'll be in, without actually starting to do something. So I think never would you have thought when you joined Monuments, like when you were 19, that you would be exposed to so many different things, and then whatever you were exposed to definitely kind of helped shape who you are today, for the good or for better or worse, so it is interesting to hear about that journey, but like I actually forgot to ask, like how then, like we're like going in different periods now. So I forgot to actually ask, how did they find you? Did you approach them when they needed someone to fill in, or did they like look you up and then did they get in touch with you?
So I bumped into Mike at a gig that I was playing, and it's pretty funny because it was with my old band and I played terribly, and I even kind of fell off stage. I felt it like one of my legs just kind of slipped off the stage, and
Oh, damn.
it sucked. And also, you don't know how to handle that shit. That was probably my fourth ever gig, so it was like crushing, and was supporting Tesseract as well, so it was like added pressure. So that I didn't come off stage like thinking anything other than maybe like get me the fuck out of here. And then I bumped into Mike, he introduced himself, and I guess he'd seen like a studio video of me tracking with this band. I think that's what happened. And we got to talk, and he was like, we need a guitarist to fill in for this next tour. And I knew that next tour was with Periphery and Tesseract, which were the other two really hypey bands at that moment.
Yeah.
It was just perfect, really. And he put me in contact with Browne, who asked me if I had a 7-string and an 8-string, and I just lied through my teeth and said, "Yep, of course I do." Because you got to think, this is like 2010, where 7 strings weren't even that common at that point.
Yeah.
So I managed to track one of those down, and then the 8-string thing took a bit longer because there were only a couple in the market, really. So it happened that way, just pure kind of circumstance. And then I guess a little bit at one point I did like when I got hold of my mate's 7-string, I did like a Tesseract cover and threw it on YouTube. And I think Browne saw that, and maybe that kind of gave him the all clear or whatever. Because also there weren't many players kicking about at that point, you know what I mean? There wasn't like, you can just scroll through Instagram and find a tech metal player somewhere, do you know what I mean? And I wasn't even, I was kind of more of like a metalcore guy at the time. I mean, I liked a lot of different kind of music, but so yeah, there were kind of limited options, and I think maybe that's kind of what got me the gig initially. Because the guy they had before, Paul from Chimp Spanner, he was filling in for me. He definitely at that point was a way more capable musician than I was. and he had 7-string experience and all this stuff, and he'd written albums already, and knew about recording production, and like he'd be a way better, way more suitable. I mean, if you're just looking at his resume, you'd be like, we can get this guy who's like basically a producer type thing. I don't know if he was a full-on producer then, but he definitely is now. And he has 7-string experience. He knows about recording. He knows about tones. He knows about this and that. He can write music. He's written albums. Or this guy who's like this mouthy 19-year-old who's played 5. Do you know what I mean? So it must literally be because the options were slim, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think it's not like today. Yeah, like it's very different. It was very different back 10 years ago compared to now. In terms of access to available guitarists.
Yeah, and Facebook groups and Instagram and all this stuff. So I'm very lucky things work out the way they did. I'm very lucky they could deal with my hyper drunk 19-year-old self as well. I got to give credit to John Browne for seeing any potential in that child that I was, because I was a bit of a fucking idiot, more so than I am now. So yeah, but again, it's part like maybe he saw something, but it's also like maybe I was the only option at the time. So
it's like you don't get to pick and choose,
Yeah.
But I'm sure. Like having said all that, I'm sure you deserved, what you got, and I'm very happy for you. Well. So then you mentioned, I'm only asking this because you mentioned it time and time again that you sucked on stage. So how do you actually improve on? How did you actually improve on that? Because I mean, if you talk about practicing at home, everyone can spend like say 24 hours a day practicing at home, getting better, sitting down. But being on stage is a whole different story. I mean, there's the adrenaline, there's so many things to worry about. So then how did you kind of get better over time? Was it just a matter of experience, or was it like something you had to do, especially just to get over that barrier of, sucking at stage?
Well, the confidence thing comes from repetition and like comfort. So if it's your like 7th gig ever and you're playing in Monuments, and then Tesseract are going to come on after you, and then Periphery are going to come on after that, and it's 2010, and it's like the birth of this whole thing. There's no reason, and you're playing a 7-string and an 8-string for the first, like for I'd never owned one before. Everything's kind of, there's no reason why I should be, and then the Monuments material as well is really challenging. And I'm learning things really rapidly, like about how much gain is, or distortion is realistic to be using on stage, and how much most stages aren't going to give you a sweet stage sound. And how much, how to recover from something like dropping your pick, fucking something up, coming in early, missing a cue, maybe there's feedback. We don't have, at this point, the thought of me having an endorsement, and if I need a piece of gear or something to make a gig work, I can have a conversation with this company and maybe we can work something out. It's just like, now we've got what we've got. I didn't even have an amp that was kind of voiced or suited for what we needed. I think I was borrowing something from someone that just really wasn't like the kind of thing we needed. It was just really rough and raw, and like, you learn things quickly when you're in the deep end. I felt like I was in the deep end quite a bit, because there was no sense of comfort at all. I'm learning about like stage space. We had dual vocalists at that time. They're running about. I'm like glued to the monitor, just trying to get the parts to happen. There's zero sense of me being like a showman, like trying to get people involved, headbanging, like doing any of that shit. I don't know the songs well enough. I don't even know the songs confidently enough to get through them, let alone start jumping around and trying to be slick. So, but 5 years after that, I know both the albums we have at that point, and I know them inside out, and I know at what point I can move and what point I can't. My rhythmic chops are way better. There aren't phrases in the songs that I don't understand. It's not new. I've been playing a 7-string for 5 years now. I feel, maybe I'm playing a 7 string that's like a custom 7 string for me that I've chosen the specs of myself. Maybe I'm playing through an amp now that, you know, some company has generously endorsed me with. So I'm playing something that feels good through something that feels good. And I've been playing these songs for 5 years. 7 strings are no longer like a different thing to me. I've been playing with the band. I've been playing with this drummer for ages. Do you know what I mean? I've been playing with this same drummer for you know what I mean? We've elaborated on the songs now. We've added new stuff live. I've played 100 gigs at this point. Like, it's just repetition, doing something every day. Going on tour is like the quickest way to, I mean, at the beginning of that tour and the end of that tour, the first one, I would have been way more confident because I would have felt more confident with the songs. I would have tried to be moving more. I would have been enjoying myself more and thinking less. And after a couple of tours, I don't know how much further you can, you know, there was a lot of stuff that I kind of had together, I think. Well, maybe not. Let me say that, because if I saw some old footage, I'd probably hate it. But yeah, tours are great because you have back-to-back gigs every single day. It's a process. You know what I mean? You're on practically the same time every day. You're playing through the same. I mean, it still changes. The crowd changes. The venue changes. You know, the size of the stage, how it sounds and stuff. Yeah. And we only just got, like a couple of years ago, we only just got the in-ear system, which is the thing that gives us any sense of consistency. Of sound every day,
because that's something you can tweak. Yeah,
and if I don't want massively loud blaring cymbals covering up everything, then, you know, I can turn that down. Or if I don't want the vocals because they distract me, I can do that and stuff. But you know, so going through just going through the motions like everyone else, you know, having a few shit gigs, working out what works for you, what doesn't, and then kind of working out a bit of a chemistry with your band. Like, there are things that I'll go and fuck around with Mike's cymbals whilst he's playing. I'll try and catch them whilst I'm playing with the other hand and whatever, which is very different to, or like sometimes I'm trying to like hit Browne's guitar with my pick, like silly shit. It probably still sounds bad, but it's like, I know the gaps where I can, you know, get away, like a bit of noise or feedback, or maybe it sounds a bit more rock and roll, as opposed to, I remember the first ever gig I played with Monuments where I was just stuck to the monitor. I don't even think I was facing the crowd. And my heart would have been going like that, and like it would have been just repetition and touring back-to-back gigs. You know, if I played a gig every weekend for a year, it wouldn't be the same as 2 tours. Like, it's just repetition in close proximity is the key to that stuff, I believe.
Yeah, because I think also it's the mental memory and also the muscle memory, you know, kind of remembering what you did wrong, like just not too long ago. And then you kind of work on that. And then by the time you're done, you're like, you know, you fixed a lot of problems automatically because your muscle remembers. It's, you know, as opposed to having like a 2 break and then coming back to it, you might have already forgotten some of the problems that you were facing in the previous tour. So I think, I mean, it makes a lot of sense that, you know, you said repetition within a short period of time does really help you grow a lot faster. And it's also about diving into the sea and then learning how to swim because you have no choice. I think that.
Well, see, the good thing about being a teenager and maybe being a bit like obnoxious and not having too much foresight is I didn't really understand how deep it was going to be. And again, like I said, it was kind of a lower level. We weren't playing huge venues. We weren't. It was still really exciting and stuff. It was still a bit raw. I was still playing whatever I could get through whatever I could get. But, you know, playing live is a thing and coming across good. Like, at that point, I was just trying to get through the songs, whereas now I feel like we have kind of a reputation in a way about, you know, we need to play this shit good. And we fuck up every day. Like, there's something that's gonna go wrong. especially when, like, if you play the song so many times that you're now not bored, but you're looking for new things, new challenges. So we add shit. Me and Browne might add some stuff. We might add some band stuff, or we might play off the vocals, or there are little in-jokes that come up at certain times, or Mike's very improvisational. So that there's a level of risk there as well. Like, if it's not the same every day, then, you know, you have to find new ways to navigate stuff. You could drop a stick. He's always breaking cymbals and breaking sticks, and like there's always shit going on. So it's always kind of there's always kind of a new challenge. And it's really common where I come off stage. I usually ask everyone how it went for them. Well, that's usually the first conversation that happens, a really quick one. And I could have had a really sick time, and then I look at Browne and he's just like, that was fucking, I hated every second of that. I'm like, huh. and vice versa. Usually the ones where I hate it the most, I'll talk to Swanee and he'll be like, yeah, I nailed that. That was great. That was the best one. Like, it's such a weird dynamic.
Well, but I guess it's good in a way, because it would suck if it was sucky for all of you guys at the same time.
Oh, that
So
happens.
that
That happens. South America.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was a couple of gigs there's one in particular, I want to say Argentina, where everything that could have possibly gone wrong went wrong. It was actually, like, on reflection, it was amazing, like literally incredible how bad everything was. So get this. So like, we had some bad news about getting paid for that gig just before we went on stage. Like, we didn't know if someone was trying to get away with not paying us, basically. So our representative at that point was like, look, we're not going to go on stage until I hear that the transactions come through. So we wait like 2 hours beyond when we're supposed to start. So it gets pretty late.
Wow.
And, you know, this is kind of, again, it's kind of on us. No one in the crowd is thinking, oh, maybe anyone who's bought a ticket are just like, where the fucking monuments? Like, I paid to see this band, where are they? And we hadn't eaten fuck all in Argentina. And sleeping was just not happening because the bus we rented was horrific. It was like something out of Saw. You know the Saw movies?
Yeah.
Everything was just like filthy and greasy and sharp and dusty and just like it was fucked.
Damn.
So we get there already in this condition. We haven't showered for like 3 days. And then we hit the stage late. Our vocalist was having problems with his throat. I think the drummer something fucked up with his pedal. I think he broke his pedal or he broke the kick drum. The amp I was playing through had already been busted by one of the opening bands. Damn. The laptop was skipping, and I had done something to my Helix, the processor that I play guitar through. That meant that when it told me I was in tune, I was actually fully not in tune. But it was telling me I was. This is a mistake of mine. I had knocked something or done something at some point. And so everything sounded really, really nauseating and off for the whole gig. And I was like, I was convinced it was Browne. Browne was convinced it was me. That's usually, if we have tuning issues, usually one of us is in and the other one is out. So we just, every single note sounded so wrong and just like unsettling. And the energy of the band was so like, it was just everything was so bad. And actually, it was fucking amazing.
Must have been hell of an experience. No, I think you weren't kidding when you said literally everything that could have gone wrong went wrong that tour. So it was terrible.
Because even when we sounded tight and in time or whatever, it was still out of tune.
Yeah. And
the drummer's still trying to play double kick stuff with one pedal, and like the laptop skipping, and we had to restart tunes, and it was just fun. And so hot and sweating, we were exhausted, and it was just like we didn't even know if we were going to get paid, and we were like 2 hours late for the gig because of that whole situation with the money. So it's just like I can't see it getting any worse than that unless one of us dies on stage, in which case we'll be famous.
Oh yeah, that's true. But let's not hope let's not hope for that to happen before you guys get famous. So get famous, nobody dies. That should be what we should be hoping for. Yeah, stay alive, man. Stay alive. Oh well, yeah, that's very interesting. Like, I think it's a bit. You can't know what's gonna go wrong. Actually, you can do all the prep work. You can do all the planning, and when things are meant to go wrong, they will just go wrong, and there's just
We have
nothing
this
you can do.
we have this mantra that's basically, if the venue is great and the staff are nice and it sounds good and it's a great stage and it's great gear and it's a smooth sound check and everything feels perfect, you're going to have a shit gig. Like that seems to be the case. And so when we get in there, our sound guy is pretty funny because he's into sound, you know what I mean? So if we rock up to the venue and the desk is shit, or the monitors are shit, or whatever, he's gonna start raging, and that kind of adds to like the negative vibe we have. So if we get to a shit venue and nothing's working and this thing's falling off the thing, and, whatever, those are usually the best gigs, because we let go of all our fucks to give, right? And then it becomes more of a show, more of a rock and roll thing. We've carried this energy all day, like, I can't be asked. And then for some reason, when we're on stage, the energies are really good. It's not to say that you can't have I've had great gigs and great venues and shit gigs and shit venues as well, but it's kind of like an in-joke now, where if everything's positive, then don't expect to have a good gig.
Too good to be true.
Exactly.
When you see a good venue, it's like, this is too good to be true. So honest opinion, did your London show go well, in your opinion? Like, the last gig at Islington, there you go.
Yeah, for sure. That was a long, stressful day, but it was, and it took me a couple of songs because first of all, the London gig is always the most important one to me. It just always is. We don't play London very often because we don't want to oversaturate. But we are an English band for the most part, right? And there was so much shit going on. We had like an after party thing. I was kind of taking care of that. We had interviews in the day. We were setting up. I was just running around doing a million things. But I'd also spent 30 days thinking about this day, because, do you know what I mean? And so by the time I got on stage, I was like, oh, it's actually happening. And I was kind of just away with the fairies. My mum was there. I don't think she's seen us live for like 7 years. And that might have been the only time, maybe. So it's like, there's like a lot. But then by the time, there was so many people there, and they were going pretty nuts. And, by the end of it, I was really feeling it, and it felt great.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it was I mean, my mates and I had like a really good time. In fact, we were contemplating. I think I dropped you a text as well, saying, I'm not sure if my mates and I should be going, because I think that was kind of like the start of the whole coronavirus thing. So then we were kind of concerned with like, should we go, should we not? And then we're like, yeah, fuck it, it's Monument, we should go, And then so we went. It was a crazy night. We were all sweaty and sticky by the end of it, and it was like, oh, that was worth it. For a couple of drinks after that, and it was a good show. It was crazy night. I mean, the opening bands were crazy. Heart of Coward were phenomenal as well, and then it was a good show. So the reason why I asked was because I wanted to know if like there was a difference. I mean, if us as the crowd would feel a difference when you're having a shit show, but then like, okay, well, now it's kind of clear that, I mean, we had a good time, but then you're also saying that it went really well as well. Apart from that, I think you only had like tuning issues, but apart from that, like the whole gig was kind of sick. But I remember it was so annoying for you to kind of constantly tune in between the song.
I tune a lot anyway, because I don't play any clean shit. So if I'm not playing, there are sections like lower sections where it's more chill. I'm just gonna tune anyway, because that's just the nature of this. Guitar has been in and out of the back of a van and then in a hot backstage like every day. Wood is temperamental, metal is temperamental, yada yada yada. So I tune a lot anyway. But I think we probably had the worst tuning issues of the whole tour on that gig. Which, to be fair, it wasn't that bad. I mean, I find it noticeable, but it wasn't. I also tune a lot anyway. Like, I spend a lot of time tuning just to make sure. because we can, if you hit the guitar hard enough, and we try and hit hard, but if you hit it hard enough at the right angle anyway, you're gonna go out, and then it's like that you're locked in because the next 4 sections are all sections where you play and you don't get a break. So you just gotta play that or you have to stop and reach it. Like you have to kind of make that decision up on the spot. So my point is, the tuning issues probably weren't as bad as they looked, because I tune a lot anyway.
Okay.
But there were issues.
Okay. Well, so then have you actually considered looking into options on how you can kind of solve this kind of issues? Because obviously there's things, I mean, I know you don't like talking about gear, but then I can't help but ask, I mean, because there are solutions like Evertune. I mean, it's kind of guaranteed to stay in tune throughout the whole show. To be honest, is that something you ever considered at all? I mean, just for the sake of saving time and kind of peace of mind, being on stage and also stays in tune the whole time, no matter how hard you hit it or whatever you do. With all the temperature changes, humidity changes, that thing literally stays in tune. Was that something you ever considered, or do you think that's something you might want to look into in the future?
I would want to be given a free guitar with an Evertune on it. Beforehand, I would want hands-on experience, basically. So without having spent a decent amount of time with that one, I don't know if I'd make that switch. I'm not so into how they look aesthetically, and just the idea of special bridges kind of puts me off a little bit, just because I like things real simple, as simple as they can be. The least shit in the chain, the better. That's just like a general tone shaping production thing anyway. Like, things need to be good at the source. They need to be as naturally good as they can be. Sorry. The more shit that you find the more shit that you need to do to a sound to get it where you want, you're probably trying too hard, and you're going to take it too far away. It's going to sound unnatural anyway, or whatever. So Evertune, I don't know. It sounds great. I've heard amazing things. I've seen videos and stuff. It looks pretty mad. But also there's something about when you hit a string and it goes a little bit sharp or whatever, that's kind of a thing as well. Like, that's kind of a thing that it's on the Monuments albums. It is part of live performance. And we don't have horrific tuning issues where the songs aren't playable. It's just that the scale length of my guitar and the scale length of Browne's guitar are slightly different, and then we hit differently. So there's always going to be a slight difference there.
Yeah, that's true.
But I mean, I play Ibanez Prestige guitars with locking tuners and everything. They're professional level, roadworthy instruments. And Browne's guitars are even more they're his custom signature models. They're really well built guitars. There's not so much you can do beyond that point, other than just hit really soft and try not to much. If you move the neck around, it will make small, very slight bends and stuff. Anyway, if I bash it by accident, the classic one is I'm trying to tune and the note isn't moving on the tuner because I'm hitting the wrong tuning peg because I'm a fool.
Oh yeah.
There are things
all the time.
Yeah, you'd think after 9 years, 10 years, it wouldn't be an issue, but I still managed to do it. So,
well, I think you're not the only one doing that, making that mistake. You're why the fuck's the needle not moving at all? You're I'm twisting and twisting.
And that's always the point where when the count-in happens in my ear, and it's the song's about to start, and it's just so I either in a split second I have the option of not starting the song or starting the song fully out of tune. It just never doesn't. It happens every tour. What are you gonna do?
Oh well, it is what it is. I think it happens, and show must go on. Regardless of what happens.
That's literally. I mean, I know that's it's a cheesy phrase that people use, but it's the truth.
It is.
It needs to happen.
It is the truth. Yeah. Out of tune or not, you have to keep going. That's just rock and roll, like you say. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing live. I mean, because I find the question about playing live very interesting because everyone has a different experience and different things have happened to them and then kind of shaped them differently in different ways. So that was really interesting to listen to. So maybe let's talk a bit about more about Monuments as a band and how songs are written, etc. So first of all, obviously thank you for sharing all that, and so for now, like, so we know that I mean, you mentioned that you joined Monuments a couple of tunes after they were formed. So at that point, obviously you were trying, I mean, when you joined the band, obviously it was more of learning how to play their songs and playing to their style. So at what point, because obviously it's not when you're with a band for such a long time, it's about band style, just learning because you are like part of the band already. You are the band, so it's not just about learning how to play to the stand. And so at what point and how did you inject your style and your ideas into songwriting for the band?
Well, the Amanuensis is the first time, so the second album is the first time that my material got used, which is the first album that I was around for the creation for. Like, Gnosis was all written before I joined. There's a small cat running around. So yeah, I had like literally 2 sections on the Amanuensis. But what's cool about that is that each section was the first section. So I submitted these a few things to Browne, and he took 2 of the riffs and just wrote whole songs around them, if I'm not mistaken. And then it was around then, but Phronesis is the first time where it was like, I had full songs ready to go, and I'd take them to Browne's, and we just like nudge this, nudge that. We also wrote songs from the ground up together as well. And yeah, so Phronesis is like the one where it's probably 40% my music.
Oh wow,
and then all the drums. I did a lot of work with the drums on that album, because just like going back and forth with Anoop Sastry, we had him record them, which made sense because he was in the band leading up to the album. He then left, but he was like, yeah, I'll do that for sure. So just going back and forth with him, that was really fun. And then even in the studio as well, like me and Browne were kind of the main 2 dudes giving suggestions and like decision making and like bouncing off each other. That was cool. And I hope to do just as much, as if not more, on the new stuff. But one thing I've learned is that, I think I said this in the JTC interview, but basically the more
sorry, I think it was lag. Yeah, there was a lag.
No,
yeah.
So the because I had a bit with the Amanuensis, I had a bit of frustration with the inclusion aspect, because there was a lot I didn't know. I hadn't been writing music really. That was just an assumption of mine that I can write riffs, therefore I can write songs, but I couldn't. It's not something I had done at that point. I had played guitar, I'd practiced guitar, I'd built up technique, I could write riffs, but writing an actual song, an actual flowing journey, is a whole nother thing. So maybe I had visions for those riffs, those sections that I submitted that are different to how they turned out. Luckily, I'm glad how they turned out, because if you ask me, the Amanuensis is a perfect album. And I don't feel bad saying that at all, because I wrote very little of it, like 2% of it. So I don't feel like I'm bigging myself up. I just, as a fan of heavy music and music in general, I believe that album to be a masterpiece.
Perfect.
On all aspects, like the music as well as the vocals as well as just the vibe and like I think it's really good. So I'm not saying that I would have changed anything, but if you submit full ideas to the band, at least that's how it works in my situation. There's more of a chance of things ending up how you originally envisioned, because it has to go through 5 filters, right? You've got, it could be that you suggest a song, you submit a song idea, and then, for example, Browne goes, yeah, that's perfect, let's just double the length of this section, and then it's a song. Or the vocalist might go, yeah, that's perfect, let's just half this section, and then that's a song. Or you might submit and it gets mangled and everyone's like, well, this section's bollocks, or this didn't have to happen, or let's change this. Or a really common one with my drummer, Mike, is that because he can hear things in different time signatures, I guess, different kind of, he can take in a riff in a few different ways just because he's minded that way. So something that's in 4/4, he could also hear in 3, or something that's full time, he can hear him in halftime straight away. And then it's like, he's like, have you tried this? Have you tried that? I'm like, I don't want to try that. Or maybe it's no, I haven't, and then something cool will happen. But like, there's a lot of different ways something can get changed and tweaked before we all agree that it's a real song. So the best thing for me to do, and I think the best thing for the band, is to submit things that are big and chunky and fully formed, because then it's just about cutting out fat, as opposed to someone else is going to come in with something that you didn't really envision, or you know what I mean? Your vibe, everyone hears things so different. Everyone in general, on planet Earth hears things so differently, and where things can go and how things can function completely different. Vocalists is something I've learned, just through doing this shit. Vocalists hear things in a completely different way. It's a vessel, it's a vehicle, it's something to ride. It's like a wave that they're on top of. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I'm listening, and I get it, you're the singer, but if Browne sends me a riff, I'm listening for specific things. Obviously, I'm listening for flow. I'm listening for how effective each section is. How how good does it feel? How what's the word? Just like satisfying. I'm also listening for like little motifs and like little pieces, like how is he building it? What has he done? Like what's going on there? Is this rhythm from somewhere else? Or do you know what I mean? I'm listening a little deeper. Whereas vocalists might just be like, which bit's the chorus? Where's my chorus? Where's my chorus? Where's my chorus? You know what I mean? Or, it's just like, it's completely different, and we all have different, everyone can hear everything in my band. So if there's a bass note somewhere that's a bit off, my singer will hear it. And if there's a guitar thing that's could be better, or there's an idea there, my drummer will hear it. So my point is, if something isn't right on the money, it's gonna get, it could get changed. It's like a Rubik's Cube. There's so many different ways that it can be tweaked. And then you kind of, so that can obviously lead to frustration sometimes, or sometimes you have to kind of, don't want to say override certain ideas, but sometimes you need to like, oh, I didn't quite get that, and then you just kind of move on with your initial idea. Just pretend you didn't hear something, or I feel like you have to acknowledge all suggestions, right? Yeah. Whether you agree with it or not, you have to at least tell the man that, okay, I hear you, but maybe sometimes you can feel quite strongly about music, like I'm hugely emotionally attached to it. It's the thing that's been driving my whole life for the last 10 years. So you can get a bit, you could get to a point where you're like, I know what the right thing for this song is. I fully appreciate what the suggestion is, but I know what to do. I know what this has to be. I know what it was from the inception. Like, I started this idea and I know where it needs to go. And then, things can get a little bit heated. There's never been a screaming match over a riff, I don't think. But, there will be disagreements. There are variables. There is a dynamic there. And that's just outside of the fact that we all know each other personally and everyone deals with things a little differently. Certain people don't want to confront. Certain people are more open-minded. Certain people can be brick wall and stubborn. Certain people raise their voice. Certain people don't say anything. So it's like, it's a whole fucking storm of fuckery.
Well, I guess what you said is true. I think it's kind of similar, not just for music, but for everything. You kind of something that's like half done or just like a portion of like a bigger picture. There's too much room for people to comment on, like, oh, because if you present a plate with just like a bit of food in the middle, people will start to get crazy with their ideas, like, you know, oh, maybe we should have this ingredient, that ingredient, and all sorts of crazy shit gets suggested because there was so much room to kind of play with. So I think the difference is when you submit something that's complete, people actually look at the whole picture and they actually see how you envisage and achieve there. So then it's just I guess for most of the time it's more about injecting their perspective rather than injecting something that's completely different to what you were doing. So it's just a matter of telling, oh, have you tried this? I think it sounds good, but I think it could be better if it was done in like a 3/4 instead of a 4/4, rather than sorry, there's this empty gap here, put this riff in, you know. So that's a different thing.
It's the difference between seeing a blank canvas and then, because that makes you want to paint on it.
Yeah.
Whereas
exactly.
if you see a painting already, whether it's shit or sick or a little bit unfinished, it's already a painting. Mm-hmm. So it's like you might want to touch it up a little bit, and I usually even now, like the last writing session I had with Browne, I've learned to things always sound the best when they come to fruition from the initial vision. Wow, that was a wordy little bit, but what I mean is now if Browne has a song idea and I'm in the back giving suggestions and shit like that, I don't pick up the guitar so much and like try and get involved and like try and throw that you could do this, you do that. I'm just like just kind of let him do his thing, and then if I have little suggestions here and there, yeah, I'll throw them in, and it makes for a better working environment as well. And I found that for my ideas as well. I've kind of decided that from now on, I'll just kind of hide my shit until it's like at least 3 minutes long, or until it feels like a song to me. Or maybe I'll show it to Andy first, because maybe his perception of, he's not going to get so into the nitty gritty of like riffs and licks and stuff. And like, unless it sucks, he's not going to be like, change that drum fill. Do you know what I mean? He's not. He'll just see it. I would have thought he'd see it as more of a finished product, and it's like, can I sing over this or not? Do I feel like I could write lyrics to this thing? It's a different thing, as opposed to I'm just gonna say it. Mike is the worst for different versions. Like he something about he's the most musically talented guy in the band. He's madness. But what he also has is he can see 9 outcomes from one thing, which is amazing. And it can also be a little bit paralyzing as well, because it's like, well, fuck, you're right. And then now, which one do we choose? But
yeah,
it's just like there's like so much. Whereas, so do you know what I mean? Like there is a process, and there's different ways to come up with stuff, and depending on who you're working with, it might be obviously, I love you, Mike, forever. But, there is like Swanee, my bassist, he only really he doesn't record or anything like that, because he doesn't want to hate music. So, because it's true that can happen. Like you spend all day trying to record something or make it sound good and tweak it, and then by the end, do you even give a fuck about it anymore? But he suggests more like structural ideas and like concepts. He's not going to pick up the guitar and start like riffing at me, and then I'm going to start riffing back at him. It's like, he has a different perspective. So it all kind of fits in pretty well. And they haven't, like I said, there's never been a screaming match or a plate thrown because of a riff. But I feel pretty strongly about the stuff I write the way that anyone else would. And, being a band member and just growing up in general is learning that, you're one of five. There are five of us, and we all need to be happy with this thing that we're going to play for 30 days. Do you know what I mean? So get over yourself.
Just bear with me. Okay, it's done. Okay, well, yes, sorry, there was just like a 5-second lag there. Oh yeah, that's true, because I think being a band is kind of like being in a relationship. I mean obviously in a relationship, in typical cases there's like two parties, so obviously they're two different people with sometimes or half the time different ideas, but I think to a certain extent there's a lot of compromise that needs to happen, in the sense that one party, or in your cases 4 parties, need to learn how to take a few steps back to allow the main person for that particular song to do his thing, and then after that just give constructive opinions on how it could be better, rather than trying to force different ideas to one piece that's already almost complete. So imagine if you have like 4 people giving you 9 ideas each for a riff or a song that you've written, they'll be like, fuck, you take 10 years to.
That's Mike.
To write.
Mike is 4 people giving you 9 ideas. He's got some magic. He's got magic musical powers.
But well, I guess sometimes that 9 ideas can be split in different songs, I guess, because sometimes the concepts that he introduces into the song might not you might not think it feels right, but then the ideas that he gives you, I'm sure somehow you give them that's like maybe something you didn't see, or something you didn't hear before, and then I think one way or another, whether all those 9 different options were accepted into that particular song or not, somehow that will kind of leak into the other songs as well, if you get what I mean.
It's all musically valid stuff.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to get to completion, right? At least my version of it, or like a chill version of completion before I submit something. So if I send Mike one riff, game over, because that's that blank canvas thing, right? So it could go anywhere. But same with Browne, same with Swan. Or it might just not even inspire, because it's just a riff. It's not enough. There's been no journey yet. So that's why personally I wait until my shit's a bit longer now, and then I send it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially with Browne's method of writing. Because he constantly talks about reintroducing the same thing in various forms. Like, he talks about, playing a riff in reverse in the same song, or playing them in different octaves. So then the way I see it is that, he pays a lot of emphasis on the overall composition and how those different parts come together. So I would think if you send a riff that's just a riff, then there's just too much to comment on, and it's not the ideal thing to do. So I think what you're doing makes the most sense. It's the most productive, and gets you to the final result the fastest. Yeah. Was there a lag there on your end?
It's been a little bit temperamental, but it's nothing we can't survive.
Yeah. Likewise, like in between sometimes when you talk, there's a lag or two, but then it's still fine. Generally we can still hear each other quite fine. So that's great. Well, yeah, thanks for that. So I'm sure some riffs, despite the fact that you submit, full or almost complete songs. I'm sure that sometimes it still happens when you're written out and then they don't get used in that particular song. Do you store them somehow, or do you just forget about it and then the next time you write again, you write, from scratch again? Or do you somehow, or are there cases where you kind of still feel the connection with that riff and you think that you might want to use it later and you somehow store it somewhere in a particular way, like in a folder or?
Yes and no. Like, I was talking to someone about this, I was giving a lesson recently, and we were talking about composition.
Mm-hmm.
And it was basically about how the initial moment you're inspired, you can be inspired at any point, but the initial moment that inspires the creation of something can't be returned to. And you can open that project up again, but the place you were when you got excited and you had nothing, like your first stroke on the canvas or whatever, you can't really get back there. And the longer you leave it, the further away you get from that place. So what I usually don't do is find all the B-side riffs from a song that I have finished and then use those in another song, because they were supposed to be, they were from that moment. That's that vibe. I'm not trying to just do that again, but shitter. But it depends on the context. If it's notey and licky and melodic and it has like a hook or whatever, then yeah, there's a chance that, because it's built off the same DNA, because I do the same thing that Browne does, because I picked that up from Browne, that it would make no sense for me to be able to use that somewhere elsewhere. But if it's like a rhythm-based thing or a groove thing or something that's, can be thrown around in different keys or something like that, like a rhythm, then yeah, it fully could be used again. I try not to do that because I want the next thing I put out to be a modern screenshot of how I sound now. Do you know what I mean? And even though all the music you hear has been written a year minimum previously, just because of how long it takes to track it, record it, the mixing process, the release process, especially if you have a label or something. But I have no interest really in releasing something that's 7 years old right now, unless it's like really, really sick and still holds up now. But like with I would assume most musicians, I look back at stuff I did, and if I go back beyond a certain point, I just don't really respect the musician I was then. Like, I don't feel like that represents who I am now. Those creative choices aren't that sweet to me. So for me, that's like 2015 and before. It's fun to look through my old riffs and stuff, and they all sound like Gojira ripoffs, and it's kind of fun. But that's not anything from the last couple of years. I feel like it's fair to say it's kind of more representative of what I do now. So, but it depends. Like, having said that, I opened up a session a couple of days ago, and I've just finished a song that I probably put the first riff down in like 2016. So there is an example there of me doing the opposite thing, but it happens to sound, it's down to my quality filter. It sounds modern, it sounds cool, it sounds like something I would say musically today. So it's all good.
Relevant. Yeah, I guess it's about apart from whether it's besides the point of whether the riff is still relevant to today's music or not, it also has to do with what you mentioned earlier, whether you still feel the same as you did when you first wrote that riff, and if it still inspires you to write a song, why not? And if it doesn't inspire you anymore, then maybe sometimes that riff is no good already, because you've lost, you're no longer in the moment, you've lost that initial excitement about that riff, so I think
that doesn't mean that you should, I'm not trying to suggest this to anyone else. If you can find an idea that's 8 years old and make a song out of it today, go right ahead. Like, you definitely should. The goal is to create music and release it, and then add to musical history. Like that's the whole thing. But I'm just saying, like, more often than not, I try and keep things up to date. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's no right or wrong, like you said, and everyone. That one of the things that make these interviews or chats so interesting is that everyone has like their own way of doing things, but then everyone has that. I mean, obviously, as musicians, we know that we can't force our ideas, and we can't say that our way is the only way. It's just the way we do it as musicians, you know. And so that's why these talks are so interesting for not just for the listeners, but also for me, because I do. I mean, I've only done a handful of interviews, and I'm already seeing like a quite a wide spectrum of different methodologies in terms of how they approach songwriting, how they record, how they do stuff. So it is actually very interesting to discuss all these different approaches when it comes to songwriting. So yeah, it is interesting to hear what you had to say. And yeah, so we've talked a lot about composition. So obviously we know that, you know, you're amazing, you're a phenomenal songwriter, and so is Browne. So what would you describe? I mean, what sort of differences to you personally do you think exists between you and Browne, and how do you think that kind of translates into the music you write? So obviously you both are phenomenal guitarist, so but one way or another there will be differences between the two of you. So how does that translate into the music you write for Monuments?
You know,
is it
I just like we're pretty different people, and our approaches are different, like the order of events. For example, I put quite a lot of emphasis on drums, like, not to say he doesn't, but, you know, I get more nitty gritty with drum programming and stuff like that. And, you know, I think that's more just of a vessel thing for him. He's just trying to get the structure happening, and then he'll do this and that. But I always want the drums to feel like, even when I'm programming, like a drummer played them. Do you know what I mean? And, yeah, he does things where I mean, first of all, he's got more toys to play with. He's got more guitars, he's got more gear, he's got more sounds. He does, you know, he uses clean sounds. That's not a thing I really do, but that's another writing tool for him. He also plays in his bass stuff. I only just got a bass recently, but, you know, I program bass most of the time. I don't think he spends as much time nerding over one riff as I do. And he spends time nerding over one riff. Like, I've seen him do it. We've done that as something we do. But maybe I overthink it. Do you know what I mean? Or whatever. But, you know, I'm just trying to think of little differences. But at the end of the day, we both want the same result. Like, we both want music that's cool, catchy, groovy, heavy, melodic, sweet phrasing, like whatever it is. My sense of phrasing is different to his. But it's still, I mean, first of all, he inspires me, and I joined his band, and his sound, or rather the sound of Monuments, is something that I've kind of absorbed. And it's part of the way I do stuff. But at the end of the day, I can't think of a time when he's presented me with a riff that is definitely sick and I've disagreed. Like, if it's sick, it's sick. It's, you know, and I think we listen for the same things, like just the overall vibe, like just how does it feel straight off the bat, but also, you know, if there's sweet phrasing in there or like a sweet note, you know what I mean? Like good use of pitch, good use of rhythm, like just, you know, if it's quality, then it's quality. Do you know what I mean? And that can be in any style. So even though we do sound different and you can tell the difference between who did what, I feel like anyway, I don't know if in the result there's that much difference. I mean, he has way more musical output than me, and he has maybe I use some some harmonic structures that he doesn't really use sometimes. But I mean, again, there are only 12 notes. So we're both going to gravitate, when we're trying to be heavy, we're both going to gravitate towards the Phrygian thing and the Phrygian dominant thing and the half whole diminished thing and the Aeolian or whatever. We both agree that, like, you know, using the blues scale for a Monuments riff doesn't really work.
Yeah.
It would just come out as comes out something like southern rock music.
Yeah.
Like it sounds like Dimebag or Zakk Wylde, which is just not, it's not really our thing. So
yeah,
we're two completely different people, and we're two fairly different players, but there's a lot of common ground. And I think realistically, the result that we want is usually the same thing. Like if he's written something and he's trying to be dissonant and nasty, I feel it. I usually feel it, and I'm like, fuck yeah, that's great. I mean, he writes a lot of stuff, and he writes a lot of stuff that I think is really great. I think he's really good. I mean, he clearly is very good. But I don't think that there's like, I like stuff. I like death metal shit, and I like really fast kick drums, and I like some stuff that we're not going to use in Monuments anytime soon. But I've never tried to push that his way or push it into Monuments, because I fully respect the fact that there is a sound there. There's like a legacy kind of thing. There's like it lives and breathes already. So I'm just trying to honor that by like kind of removing him from the situation in a way. So it's not, because I don't want to I'm not out here trying to be Browne. I'm trying to be Monuments, because I can make creative decisions in Monuments. But we do stuff in Monuments, or rather Browne does stuff with Monuments that he wouldn't do in his solo stuff or for a gear demo or something like that. Do you know what I mean? There is a focus there.
Yeah.
It's kind of a hard thing to explain, actually. It's a good question.
Yeah, but it does make a lot of sense, and because I mean, back to your point about honoring the Monument sound, I think that is one thing that is crucial to, like, you know, the survival of a band, because often you get bands change time. Not to say that it's wrong, but then sometimes it does cause problems in long term as well. I mean, imagine all of a sudden you come up with like a black metal riff, and then you're like, Browne, let's use this, and it just wouldn't work, and everyone else in the band would have to agree as well and be like, why are we doing this, you know? So I think honoring the sound and the legacy of the band is important. I mean, it's not to say that you should live in the past, but it's about how you can make the Monuments sound relevant to today, you know, without having to completely change the overall direction. And I think that's fairly important. It is very difficult to explain, like you said, but then it does make a lot of sense to work around like a common goal and a common direction, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
approach will always be different.
Yeah. But the result is kind of, you know, but if someone submits something and it just doesn't sound like Monuments, then it, you know, that's kind of it. And then it's the, you know, the conversation about, well, should we try something new? Because we always want to do something new as well. But it's like, how left are we gonna go? Because if we just start throwing in some dubstep bass lines, it's too far away. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if we did something quick, or we did something thrashy, or we did something like a neighboring sound, do you know what I mean? Then that's more of an appropriate thing for us to try. And, you know, we've been talking about blast beats for a long time, but the application needs to be groovy and have sweet phrasing and be cool. So yeah, the good thing about working in this band is that everyone's aware of what's going on. No one's kind of confused. I feel like we're really designing the sound. We're really in control of how we come across.
Oh, excuse me. I think my connection dropped for a bit there. But the connection dropped. But I'm sure Skype got that recorded. But apologies for what happened there. But if you don't mind, you could repeat like the last sentence because I think it kind of dropped out in like the last 10 seconds or so.
Oh, it's all good. I was just saying that if we're gonna do something new or different or extreme, we just want to make sure it sounds like Monument still, and it's smarter to borrow a sound that's kind of close or from a neighboring kind of genre or style, as opposed to just going really mad. And then I said that the cool thing about working in this band is that everyone's very aware, and I feel like we're in control of the sound that we put forward. Like we're designing, we're in control of sounding like ourselves, which feels cool.
That's good. That's good. So at what point then do you guys say that a song is complete? I mean, I like to ask. I think I got dropped off again.
That was a big.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just gonna repeat my question again. Apologies. So saying I like to ask this question a lot, but because everyone has a different answer to it. Obviously, everyone has different approach. And a different approach when it comes to songwriting, and also what's more important is I think what people say. I mean, at what point do people say that a song is complete? Because obviously improvements can be made endlessly. It can go on and on about tweaking, changing the notes, changing the parts, changing the duration. Did I just freeze again?
No, you're all good.
Yeah. So did you catch what I said earlier?
Yeah, and the answer is it's fully contextual and it's different every time. Did you hear me though?
No. I heard the answer is, and then you were like effing your way through.
That's perfect. That's where you should end it. Just go to a white noise screen.
Yeah. Sorry, you were saying?
The answer is that it's different. It's fully contextual and it's different every time. And that might be something that a band disagrees on. Do you know what I mean? But I think for the most part, little things like a song is usually kind of a minimum of 3 minutes. At least where we come from, pop tunes are like 2 minutes 20 now. But length, repetition. If we've got 2 choruses, that's probably enough.
Yeah.
3, you know what I mean? Unless you're doing something proggy like Regenerate or Jukai. No, even Jukai has 2 choruses. Regen doesn't have a chorus; it just kind of goes like that
the whole way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's
just when it feels good, and you kind of know as well. You kind of know. And again, that's the kind of thing where a vocalist might have a different perspective. They might be like, it's not, I haven't said enough yet, or I haven't, due to the lyrical content or the story they're trying to tell or the concept they're trying to put forward, maybe there's an aspect that they haven't said yet that they need to say, like they need space to say that thing. Otherwise, the rest of the lyrics don't make sense.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
There's a few things.
Yeah, it's like Olly Steele went to the market and then the end.
That's what most of our tunes are about. No, he did. He sat at home watching the kittens eat my rucksack.
Walk around.
Quarantine. Olly Steele was quarantine.
Yeah, Olly Steele quarantine. Well, thanks for sharing that. It's interesting to hear, how your approach when it comes to that. So, I mean, obviously, so we've talked about how you overcome suckiness on stage. We've talked about composition as individually and also as a band. So I just have one simple question, because obviously a lot of your fans, Monuments fans, and also your personal fans, they look up to you because of your technical capability. So obviously, the question is, how does one get to your level apart from, the typical question, like, typical answer of spending countless hours on the guitar, playing slow. Is there further advice that you can give in terms of, how one can technically? Am I lagging? Because
No, there was a very slight one at the end of that question. I didn't know if the question was finished or not.
Okay, well, yeah. So basically, do you have any more in-depth, more personalized Olly Steele kind of advice in terms of how someone can improve apart from the typical, play slow, practice lots of hours sort of advice?
Sure. So basically, what you need to do is gather information from multiple sources and don't take any of them as gospel. Do not decide that because this guy has 1 million subscribers on YouTube that he's the guy to listen to. That doesn't work. Just because the only golden rule it really is, if it works for you, then it's good. But just because it works for guy A doesn't mean it's going to work for guy B. So listen to as much shit as you can, and try and listen to players who sound good, obviously. Because you can, I say this a lot in my lessons, it's like, take everything with a pinch of salt, because anyone can get a green screen now and an HD camera and be a YouTube teacher. But have they put this advice that they're giving you, this knowledge that they're giving you, have they put that to the test live? Have they really recorded much? Do these people have songs that you enjoy? Like, do they have, that's the product, isn't it? Like the song, the journey, the story. Is there a song, or is it just, here's how to sweep pick really quickly, or just like allow it? So yeah, but you want to hear a lot of different perspectives, because you are one mind and one thing. And when you're younger, when you're 16 or whatever, or at least when I was 16, I got like a bit technically good kind of early. So I thought I was sick. And then because I thought I was sick, I didn't progress for a long, long time. And I had things like tension and stiffness and just like lack of economy of motion and efficiency and all this shit. But you couldn't tell me shit because I was a 16-year-old and I thought I was good already. Whereas, yeah, sorry, that's the end of that. And then the second thing is all the older guys that talk to you when you're younger. So all the blues guys and all the just older players, fusion dudes, people who actually know, all the things they're saying to you are what you're going to agree with a few years down the line. So save yourself some time and just listen now. Cool, like things like being aware of the notes you play, meaning what you play, being authoritative, not saying anything if you don't have anything to say, not forcing things if you can't think of any ideas, all this shit, tell a story, don't just go on autopilot, all this shit. This shit is real information, and this is stuff that got told to me when I was a kid, when I was in college or whatever, and I didn't give a fuck. I was just trying to write riffs and get fast. And now the most important thing in my life is songs, the finished product, the finished thing.
Yeah.
And all of these things have reared their heads. These are conversations I have with myself every day. I'm trying to do call and response. I'm trying to use motifs. I'm trying to pick the best notes. And, you need to, going back to the technical side of things, you need to have rhythm chops. You need to have technical chops to be able to play with things as much as you want. The more physical ability you have, the more you can craft things to how you want them to be. But anyone who's older and is like good, they don't, because this is the problem, and I fully get it. When you're 15, you want to sweep pick, you want to tap, you want to shred, and an older guy is like, yeah, but I don't really feel what you're playing, and then you ignore it because you're like, well, no, I want to sweep, I want to shred, but now I'm 29 and songs are important, and sweeping and shredding are just not, like, it's just not to me anyway. It's still cool, it's still fun, I still use technique, I still have a bit of that technical shreddy stuff that I was doing when I was a kid. But anyway, look, I'm waffling. So Just listen. Don't take anything as gospel, but listen and try and get information from a bunch of different sources. Because you'll also find as well that if 90% of people are saying something, there is a chance that it's true, or there is a chance that you should at least try it, see if it works for you. Just because something works for someone else doesn't mean it works for you. Everybody has different hands, different wrists, different posture, a different sound in their head. Everybody has different natural ability. Some people have massive hands. Some people have like a mad stamina in their tendons. They can just keep going forever. Some people can pick really hard straight away. Some people can't relax. Some people don't have great timing. Some people have no concept of pitch. You know, it's a mixed bag. You've got to fully neutralize yourself and be neutral. And if you if you happen to naturally have a bit of fast picking, cool. That doesn't make you better than anyone else. That doesn't mean that your phrasing's any good. That doesn't mean that you can tell a story that's going to relate, that's going to resonate to anyone else. There are so many different aspects to this, and you need to be able to hear. You need to work on your ears, man. Like, that's a huge thing. You need to be able to hear rhythm. You need to be able to hear pitch. You need to be able to, and not just because the old man's telling you to do it. It's because you can, if you have good ears, you can take a sound from somewhere else and make it your own. You can avoid things that you don't like the sound of. You can, you know, if I wanna sound Eastern, I can do it like that. If I want to sound like I'm in a kid's nursery, I can do that. You know what I mean? It's not somewhere I hang out, by the way. I'm just saying. I can make sounds happen really quickly. If I want to sound despairy and like I want to inject dread and just like hell into your ears, I can do that too, because I know how to do it. And if I hear something that's rhythmically cool and I'm like, that is, you know, I'm really into that. What is that? Where is that? What's happening on the grid? Because I know a bit about rhythm. I know about subdivisions and stuff. I know how to find that thing. So I know how to repeat stuff that I hear. I know how to mirror stuff. Also, if there's some kind of like, if there's something that everybody does and I'm like, that's whack. Why does everyone do, what is that thing? I can find out what it is and avoid it. You know what I mean? I can fully start shaping my own sound and like filtering out shit that I'm not into and start putting in shit that I'm really into. Learning about, you know, this is before even talking about, you know, theory and stuff like that. I say this to everyone, you don't need to know music theory to play guitar, to write music, to have fun. Like, you should maybe have a little look at it, see if it works for you. I use these guys as examples all the time. Like, Tosin knows a lot of theory. He goes in and out of a bunch of different sounds in all the Animals as Leaves material. Misha knows practically zero theory. He goes in and out a bunch of different sounds and all the periphery stuff. Arguably a greater range of sounds. Like, there's whole tone shit, there's jazzy sounding shit, there's altered shit, basic major minor stuff, there's like Eastern sounding stuff, there's like death metal-y, despairy sounding stuff, there's really happy poppy stuff. Like, he can do it all. He's got his own version. Like, he didn't need theory. So maybe have a look into it, see if it's for you, but it doesn't make you better at guitar technically, physically, ability wise. And it doesn't, this is just my opinion. So don't take anything I'm saying as well. But
that's true.
You don't need theory, and you don't need what the guy next to you has. I know a little bit more theory than Browne. I believe he might argue, but I do. But am I as good a songwriter as him? Hell no. Am I as technically good as him? Hell no. What did we learn? Your journey is not the same journey as the guy next to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was a big answer, but like, you have to be singular. You have to be yourself. You know what I mean? Also, if you just take what everyone else says and you just do what everyone else does, then what are you? You don't have a sound. You don't have your own voice. You're just some next guy. And
there's no identity there.
Which to me is like the highest honor you can achieve on the instrument is to sound like yourself. You know what I mean? To pick the right notes, to say the right things in the way that you would say them, to sing your own song and talk your own language. Like, that to me is amazing. If I hear my buddy Murray, had to bring his name up because I'm going to start slagging him off. No, I won't. But when I hear him play, he has certain things he likes to do and that's his sound, and I'm like, cool, that's Murray, like, you know, that's sick. And if I hear Zach Wilde play, you're not going to confuse him with anyone else, are you? Like, he has shit.
His
Steve
sound.
Vai is Steve Vai.
Such,
So on and so forth.
a
It's
true
amazing. Yeah. I think that's one of the highest honors. But if that's not your thing, that's whatever. So that's the main thing is listen to everything, but don't take any of it. Don't take any of it as gospel unless it happens to work for you after you try it. Because the guys with the green screens and the HD cameras on YouTube, a lot of them haven't played a gig or written a song or have any idea what they're talking about. And this is not to say that I know everything either. I'm a musician. I'm trying to get better all the time. I'm learning new things. I've had physical issues before in the past. Like, I've had to deal with stuff, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like the advice that I kind of give, or the suggestions I make, or the creative concepts that I give when I'm teaching are based on basically a decade of practical use. And I always say, these are concepts and ideas. These are some things you can try. Some of them will work for you, some of them don't. And if you took every single one of them and just tried to mirror it like 100%, like verbatim, then you would just sound like me, which means you didn't achieve anything. And if you try your hardest to sound like one other person, then you're always going to be behind them. You're always one step behind because you're waiting for them to say their next thing. So you have to go off and go, you know, you have to do your own thing. And so that's number one. Number two is don't be tense. It's retarded.
Yeah.
Excuse my friend. That's not, you can't say retarded in 2020, but it's not clever. It's just not a smart thing for you to do, to tense up your arm at any point and basically lock off your muscle, and you basically hit a wall. All of your ability kind of gets locked off, and it's a quick way to like damage yourself, lose control. When you're stiff, you're not. It's just not a thing. Just like that. I did that, and then I said stiff. It's there's always a relaxed and efficient and an ergonomic way to do everything. And I hit the guitar pretty hard. I try and sound aggressive. I play a 7-string and an 8-string in a metal band. It's like, it's a thing. And I think people mistake tension for strength, because when you tense, you are more solid physically, right? So they mistake that with power. But if I tense everything here, this is not the best state for me to be in, to be accurate, to have stamina, to have precision, to be able to last for a long time. I have to play, an hour of mad technical metal every night. Do I do it perfectly? No. But what I also can't risk is like tensing up or just like being too knackered to even play the next note. Like, it's not a thing. There's always a way. And then for anyone who argues this, because some people achieve mad things by being tense, the way that I teach, or the way that I give ideas to other people, is I have to assume that everyone is built the same way with the same kind of genetic blueprint. Because that way it's accessible to everyone. Like I said, some guys have, a bigger hand, or just naturally a bit quicker, or maybe better ears, or whatever it is straight away. But it's not for me to teach people and go, oh, you're already good at this one thing, so I'm going to treat you special, or give you, like, here's some special things that apply to just you. That's not how it works. We all start and we all suck, and we find out what we're good at naturally by, practicing and this and that. So if you find that you're really quick at being tense and tensing your elbow and like just like not having any finesse or whatever, then good for you, and I'm happy for you. But unfortunately, that's not gonna work for the next guy. That might just damage someone, or they might just hit a wall and they might not, do you know what I mean, progress. So try and stay relaxed, and don't listen to anyone in a way that makes them like listen to everything, but don't assume that it's all from practical experience.
Yeah. Well, that's, I think, the perfect advice to leave people with, and thank you so much for sharing that, because it would be, because I appreciate you spending that much time explaining, that idea so much in depth, and I think a lot of people would really find that helpful, because sometimes it's not just about growing as a guitarist. It's not just about the technical capabilities, also the mindset, what you choose to be open to, and what you choose to accept, and what you choose to not. Obviously, like you said, it's not about listening to everything and absorbing everything. It's about processing what you listen to, and then picking out the bits that work for you, and then kind of merging different ideas from different people together in a way that works best for you, that enables you to grow the quickest and the more, or rather the more in a more efficient way. And I think that's very, very useful advice, because I think what we do see so much banter online about that guitarist being the best, that guy sucks compared to the other guy. What this guy does is completely wrong. That guy's way is much better. And I think that's all just bollocks, because there's no one way. Like you said, we do have like the basic blueprint the same, but then all of us are different one way or another. So there's no one size fits all kind of solution. So I think what you said was very, very true, and I think many people would agree as well. So thank you so much for that advice, and also thank you so much for spending so much time chatting today. And just for the record, if you don't know, we've been chatting for like an hour and 40 minutes, and that time really goes by. But thank you so much, on behalf of myself and also the rest of your fans, we wish you all the best in your future endeavors with Monuments, and also for your side projects and for your personal project. So thank you so much once again, and we will keep in touch, and I will let you know when this video is being posted, or before it's being posted. You'll get to have a look at it first. All right, do take care and stay safe, stay indoors, don't go out, and be good. Write more songs.
Hell yeah.
All right, cheers, buddy. Ciao.